All right, everybody, welcome back. We are doing part 2 of the Astrology of LACI Peterson, and we're really getting into kind of the meat of the story here. This section, we're just going to dive right in, like we said, diving right in. If you, by chance, stumbled upon this episode and did not hear part 1, go back and listen to part 1 because you're jumping the gun. Don't do it.
You're going to miss a lot of
You're going to miss a lot of things, but we are getting into, like, the meat of the episode here. So, LACI is missing. It's Christmas Eve. She's nowhere to be found. Her 1996 Land Rover is in the driveway. And Scott is not too rattled by any of this. He gets home from a day of fishing at the Berkeley Marina. He decides to come home. He decides to take a shower. He also decides to wash his clothes. And he says that they were wet from fishing, which, like, duh. But, like, I hope you're not doing a whole load of laundry for just your fucking fishing clothes, because that's offensive. That's offensive on so many levels.
We also didn't have, like, the auto-sense load, like, amount of water back then.
Right.
I mean, now you can kind of do that and have it'll sense, like, a small amount of water.
Yeah, no, that didn't exist. That didn't exist back in the early 2000s. That was not a thing yet. But it is interesting to note that he did laundry right away and took a shower. These are things that...
When you're like, wait, where is my 8-month pregnant wife, who should definitely be here on Christmas Eve?
It's even more of like, when detectives look at this, they say, he came straight home and got in the shower, he was cleaning up. So it looks like a way to conceal evidence. But
is this before he called her mom?
Yes.
Oh, I don't like that.
These were the first things he did. This is, we're kind of revisiting the timeline here. So he does all of this. And that's when about 5:25 p.m. rolls around. He starts to realize, oh, it's weird that LACI's not here. Maybe I'll call her mom and just, like, make sure that that's who she's with. Like, mom probably picked her up. They probably went and ran some errands the last day, you know, before Christmas. Like, it's a busy day, like, going and doing last-minute stuff. But literally, Christmas Eve, everything closes by 5 o'clock. Anything that is open on Christmas Eve, closed by 5 in the United States. So... It would make sense that about 5:30, it's like, I don't know, where's my wife at? So anyway, he calls Sharon. Sharon tells Ron, LACI's stepdad, about the issue. Ron calls the police and makes the initial report of LACI missing. So, police are on the way. They're dispatched to the home. When they arrive, LACI's keys, wallet, and sunglasses were found in her purse in a closet. Who puts their purse in a closet? I do not put my purse in a closet.
Unless, like, it's their coat closet that she always puts it in. Like, it's a weird...
I mean, maybe.
Maybe, like, if you had it right by the door... but it's not
hang
a
mine
common
up.
thing.
I hang mine up. I have, like, an area that I hang it up.
Yeah.
But it's not in a closet. So, I don't know. I find that strange. The closet seems like you're putting it away and not intending to leave or go anywhere, though, too. If she had put it in there...
It depends on the closet.
It depends on the closet. I don't know what room the closet's in. I don't know if this is like a hall closet or a coat closet, like you said. But that detail really...
That is not a typical... Yeah.
I'm bothered by that detail. Also, this is kind of eerie. The dining room table was meticulously set for the family Christmas dinner the following night. So she preset the table. And it was perfectly all laid out, like everything, napkins, utensils, plates, the fancy plates. You know, you get your fancy fucking plates out for the holidays. They probably had some, like, cute Christmas designs on them or something. I imagine.
Whatever she had planned, yeah.
I imagine it's something super beautiful because she cared so much about this stuff and the little details. Like, this was really important to her, very homey housewife stuff. And then detectives said that when they questioned Scott that evening, they found him to be, quote, dead calm. While the rest of LACI's family is freaking the fuck out, like Scott
should be at least a little concerned.
He's unbothered, according to detectives. Detectives found his nonchalant demeanor to be highly suspicious, and it was just described as, direct quote, a strange combination of polite and arrogant, disaffectedly distant, and impatiently irritable. He just didn't seem like a man who was crushed or even greatly disturbed by his wife's disappearance and possible death.
That fits his
direct quote. He is very arrogant. Like, that's a big thing that I feel from him.
He's good at the bluff, you know?
Yeah.
And, like,
poker face kind of guy.
But also, I don't like it.
The same detective ended up telling me, yeah, it is. Slippery. Hashtag slippery Scott.
Skeevy, slippery Scott.
Skeevy. And it's also like so Scorpio too in that way of like, he's just slipping on by. Mm-hmm. And this same detective told the media later, I suspected Scott when I first met him. It didn't mean he did it, but I was a little bit thrown off by his calm, cool demeanor and his lack of questioning. He wasn't saying things like, will you call me back? Can I have one of your cards? Mm-hmm. What are you guys going to do now? Mm-hmm. It's like, that's the end of the quote, but it's like he just couldn't be bothered by
It's almost like he overplayed the like calm, cool, collected charm.
Yeah.
And made himself suspicious. Like also that Gemini mood can be kind of...
Oh, yeah. But when he was asked about what he had done that day, Scott said he went fishing about 90 miles from their home, and detectives immediately launch a search. Like, that's the first thing they do. As you can imagine, the media went absolutely crazy over this story. And this is, like, really important to note because this is around Christmas time. There's not a lot of news. Things are usually a little bit quiet. Feel-good stories are important at that time, but this was like...
Also, when someone's pregnant, it's usually like a bigger deal.
Yes.
Yeah.
That, and also think about how people are more sentimental and spending time with their family on Christmas. So for a pregnant woman to be missing like this, people went crazy. Like the only things in the media around this time were LACI Peterson, and we were about to go to war against Iraq. So this was the same time. So it's either, and news stations were going back and forth between George W. Bush talking and then
the LACI Peterson. That sounds so familiar.
Back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. And they'd be like, and now we have an update in the LACI Peterson case.
I was in 3rd grade.
Wow.
So, like, I kind of remember, but, like stuff you're saying is jogging my memory.
I was 17. I was 17 years old. So I was all about this. I watched all the 24-hour news coverage. I loved Nancy Grace. I loved HLN. I was so into true crime, at this point. Like, I was an absolute murderer, as a young person. But now we have to kind of rewind just a little bit because, when I mentioned Scott having extramarital affairs during this entire holiday season, that's exactly what he was doing. It's a fucking doozy. We're going to talk about Amber Frey next.
Okay.
So...
I feel like that can also make you kind of come off like how he was to the detective, like when that person is not really truly your main priority.
Oh,
like you also are a little bit less like caught up in the feelings about them, and it's hard to kind of almost play it. So it's kind of hard to pretend they are your top priority after a while, and this is like his 3rd, 4th affair probably.
Yeah.
So
presumably his 3rd, but I've heard conflicting accounts. Like, it definitely shows a pattern of him kind of taking some vacations from the marriage while still married.
Yeah.
He's kind of going off and having these little flings, and he's not getting caught. Scorpio, not getting caught. He's figured out how to do it and make it work. Because one of the crazy things, when we're going to talk so much about Amber, but I don't have this in my notes. It's just, again, I have too much knowledge about this case and I couldn't put things in my notes, but I still feel like it's important to talk about. Scott and Amber were seeing each other mostly like on weekends. And he's married and he has a pregnant wife and he's just gone on a trip with his pregnant wife. So somehow in between there, he's sneaking away to Fresno to see Amber. So he's got a lot going on, and there's a baby about to happen, which it's just...
He's kind of distracted. It's hard to juggle more than one relationship.
Yes, and to keep it secret like this is really wild. So,
and now you got detectives coming up, and they're going to probably find out, and the whole thing.
So, and I
can see why he kind of was standoffish, and also it's kind of hard to fully care. Like, you're so much...
That's such a good point, though. Like, it's hard to even... pretend you're as concerned as...
Part of him's probably thinking this is easier for me and Amber.
Right.
Yeah.
So, I guess we'll go ahead and get into Amber. Since we're... we are going to go ahead and move into Amber Fry, who, for those of you who are not familiar with this case, I don't know how anybody's not familiar, but it does happen sometimes. Or she is the star witness in the entire case, and she is the woman that Scott had an affair with just weeks before LACI disappeared. So, Amber was born on February 10th, 1975. She was born in Los Angeles, and in November of 2002, when LACI was 7 months pregnant, Scott was set up on a blind date by a friend with Amber, who was a Fresno massage therapist at the time. So a friend, like a mutual friend, met Scott at this convention when he was in Fresno for like a work thing, and didn't know he was married, and was like, oh, I know, like, I can fix you up, like, I think you guys would be great together, and you'd really hit it off, made the introduction, and didn't know what was gonna happen later. So it's just kind of by chance that they met, like the universe kind of pushed them together. And Amber was at this point in her life where she was looking for the one. She was not trying to casually date. She was very clear about that with Scott as well. She told him up front, I'm looking for something serious. I'm looking for the one. I'm looking to settle down. Like, I want to find my person. And Scott said he was looking for the same thing.
Of course he did.
And things moved very quickly. This relationship, like I said, they started dating in early November. LACI disappeared at the end of December. So this is like 6 weeks of a relationship where it is like hot and heavy. It's escalating very quickly. They're feeling very connected to each other. They're kind of swept away. Amber had no idea she was being set up with a married man. She even brought Scott as her date to her company Christmas party. There's pictures of them. They're really sweet pictures. You can just tell Amber is like really, really having strong feelings, and is like, you can tell in the pictures, like you can feel it. So she's excited about this relationship. She's feeling good, like her life is getting better. She's a single mom at the time. Her daughter was 18 months old at this point in time. So she was like really just young, excited, trying to settle down. She's already got the like home life thing going on. So this felt like a new beginning for her. And at one point, Scott said he needed to talk to her about something. So he did bring up the LACI situation before it happened, which is extremely crazy.
I feel like you don't go out on a limb and mention that you have a pregnant wife at home.
Well, he didn't tell her that.
Unless
No, he didn't tell her that.
What did he tell her?
He told Amber over a phone call that he had been married before.
Uh-huh.
Oh, you think he was forthcoming?
I was like, I mean, like, you don't play that card unless you have a plan to end it. Like,
exactly. He didn't play that card at all. Instead, he told Amber that he had already lost his wife, that she had passed away, and he openly stated this would be his first Christmas without her. LACI is still alive.
She's at the freaking Christmas table.
Yeah. It's going to be, but Nancy Grace, I got to quote her here because she said quite possibly the funniest thing ever. She said, either Scott is the most unlucky man on earth or he's clairvoyant. Like, he either like did this or he had a vision and like knew it would be his last Christmas with LACI, but he had nothing to do with it. So it's just this is where Amber Fry is the star witness, because she's bringing information about how he's living and what he's saying and what he's doing that we would not know without her.
Yeah, he doesn't say that without having a plan in mind. So make her disappear, make her go, make it be the last.
Also, his delivery of
dead wife.
Right. The delivery of this information too. He made it where Amber didn't want to ask questions. Very, very... I
know it's a sensitive subject.
Yes, he said it was really hard for him. So Amber was trying to be sensitive, and she didn't press for details at all. And like I said...
Only 6 weeks together? Like, right. I wouldn't either.
And like I said, like him and LACI went on a romantic trip just before she vanished. So he's like spending weekends in Fresno with Amber. He's spending time with her. He's going on trips with his wife. He is really playing both relationships and like playing it up and acting like everything is good in the relationships both ways. So very, very interesting behavior on the part of Scott. Like Scott's behavior was really what got him in trouble here. It wasn't evidence. It was his behavior. So, Amber had been dating Scott for like over a month when she sees the news coverage about LACI's disappearance. And Amber wasn't really one to watch the news. Mm-hmm. A friend told her, I think you should look at this, because they knew she was dating Scott. So, yeah. So this was extremely shocking. Like, she saw the comments from Scott, who was her boyfriend, who had told her that his wife was gone, like, already. So this was really weird. Amber's completely horrified. She does the right thing. Mm-hmm. She goes straight to the police. She goes straight to the Modesto police. Fuck yeah, Amber Frey. Amazing. Like, that is absolutely what you should do. So from there on out, she started cooperating with the police and started recording all of their conversations. And these are wild to listen to.
I need to.
I recorded one of their calls to let you hear. Okay. The most infamous one, I recorded it to let intentionally, because I knew you needed to hear it. So we'll listen to that later. So this is crazy. In the press conference that is now considered infamous, the world meets Amber Frey for the first time. This was between news again about the Iraqi war. Mm-hmm. It was like,
and they had to keep it on a DL so that she could do all this behind the scenes helping.
Well, not even.
Really?
Yeah, she continued to talk to Scott and record conversations after the press conference. And I'll talk about that too, because there's a call where he confronts her about it, and it's recorded. I've listened to it. So, so it cuts away from George W. Bush talking about declaring war on Iraq and all these things, and then it goes straight into this press conference with Amber Frey. So this is like, everybody's watching this. What you see is a small blonde, she's very petite, walking out towards this microphone on a podium. She's shaking, she's tearful, she's trying to gather herself, she collects herself, and then she delivers some jaw-dropping information about Scott Peterson. She came out and publicly stated that Scott told her he was single, and the two began a romantic relationship. Mm-hmm. She openly expressed how sorry she was to the Rocha family. She said she was praying for LACI's safe return. Mm-hmm. And then this is the part that I recorded for you. One of the most disgusting things that Scott did after LACI's disappearance was on the night of her memorial, like, candlelight vigil. The entire conversation, like, oh my God, you're gonna be sick to your stomach.
I already have like kind of this chilly feeling.
I keep getting chills and feeling like I've got tears welling up in my eyes as I think about it, because it's so awful. So it's New Year's Eve. Thousands of people are gathered to grieve over LACI, who's been missing since Christmas Eve. And LACI and Connor, their unborn child, also missing. Scott was in attendance, but decided to make a quick phone call to his girlfriend while he's there. Gross.
While he's there.
He told Amber this elaborate lie that he was in Paris. That's how he explained the noise in the background. Yes, because he worked for a European fertilizer company. He had to go to Europe all the time. So he explains that he's in Paris. You know, Happy New Year. Like, I'm in Paris, because there's fireworks and there's stuff going on in the background. Like, it's a big celebration of life, like memorial thing for LACI. And so and in fact, there were so many people there. One news reporter said, like, there were more attendees at this vigil than Elvis Presley's funeral. Actually, it was an attorney. I think it was Gloria Allred that said that. Gloria Allred said this, that she said there were more white limos and people there spectating than Elvis Presley's funeral. So LACI, this was a huge, huge deal. And you can see in the recording that I have to show you, you can see the crowd in the background. Like, it shows it. It shows the footage of the memorial with his voice playing over on the phone to Amber. So it's really powerfully done, and that is in the Hulu 6-part series. Please go watch that if you haven't seen it yet. It is really, really good. But he says, I'm in Paris. He kept talking about, like, how great it was, how beautiful it was. It's just so awful. And it's just the whole thing that the prosecution built up, that Scott's motive for murder was to build this life with Amber, to get this thing that felt like he was trapped, this other thing that's kind of limiting him. We saw that on his chart. He feels limited. He feels repressed. He feels like he can't do what he wants to do. He wants freedom to kind of do what he wants. He wants to start this new relationship. He's got this wife and baby standing in the way of this relationship. It's like a conflict of interest, which is hideous.
If this all worked out how he wanted, he would just be repeating the same thing with Amber
and having another affair. And this is a pattern for him, absolutely. So it's really, really gross. And then their entire relationship was 6 weeks long from start to finish. So that's another, we talked a little bit about that, but that's important to note. And then even, like I said, she kept talking to him after the press conference. That did not deter Scott. Because at the press conference, all she did was publicly say that she was having an affair with Scott Peterson. She didn't say, and I've been cooperating with the police, and I've been recording phone calls. So he still thinks he can just call her and tell her stuff, which he does.
Makes sense, yeah.
So he calls her right after the press conference. He calls her out. He starts the conversation. He's like, did they just so you just decide to go do a press conference? Did you just call the media and say you want to do a press conference one day? And she's like, God, no, Scott. No, they asked me about the relationship, and it was something that they had me do. They handed me the statement, which they did hand her the statement to read. They did prepare a statement for her. But he goes from being kind of assertive to very proud of her. He says, I'm so proud of you. You have such great character.
Oh, keep her on your good side.
He's praising her. And then he tells Amber he's going to do a public appearance too. He's going to make sure he addresses the relationship as well.
Okay. Okay, makes sense.
Bad idea when you're about to go on trial, which he doesn't know that. They haven't. But that's
from his state of mind. It makes
anything
sense.
you can say, anything you say can and will be used against you. There's no Miranda rights being read here, but he is willingly going out and talking to the media. And he also mentioned that he wanted to make sure he did it on the same night as the State of the Union address to get maximum press coverage, because he wanted to clear his name. His whole thing is I'll go on there, I'll address the affair, I'm going to de-escalate this whole thing, I'm going to get everybody to kind of understand my side.
Say whatever he wants to say, make it sound good.
That fucking backfires. So he does an interview. It's painful. This interview is so painful because he gets caught in a lot of lies in this interview. He addresses the inappropriate relationship, that's what he calls it, with Amber Frey. I had an inappropriate relationship with Amber. He asks the public to keep looking for LACI, not to get distracted by this. Don't get distracted by this affair. He also claims that he told the police about the affair right away in this interview. He's because he was asked point blank, at what point did you disclose this to police? And he said the first day in interrogation. And then you can see, I've watched the footage of his interview where they ask him if there's any problems in the relationship, and he says there were no problems. He describes the relationship as perfect. He says it was perfect. Everything was great. We were so in love. And he just kind of kept digging himself in a hole. And it's really, really interesting, kind of his approach to this. And then back to Amber a little bit, though. She's doing really well today. She's kind of moved past all of this. She has written a book about it, about her time being the star witness in this case. She's divorced, but she has 2 children. Like I said, she already had her daughter when she met Scott, but she has another child now. She seems extremely happy. She's still a massage therapist. She loves to travel, and she's openly stated that she will gladly testify again for the prosecution if needed, with all the twists and turns in Scott's case. So she's really open. She's really forthcoming. She's in the documentaries. She doesn't try to hide from any of it.
Right.
Even though throughout this entire case, Amber coming forward meant her character was being ripped to shreds. Right away, nudes were leaked of her. People were saying awful things about her. They were saying things like that she wasn't as pretty as LACI, and that, people were directly comparing her, and she got a lot of backlash for doing the right thing in this case. So I think that's important. And then I know we want to take a look at her chart. Kind of talk a little bit about Amber here.
Okay. So, Amber's chart. She was born just a few months before LACI. So she's February 1975. We have birth times for all these people. It's great.
It's so cool.
That
doesn't happen a whole lot, and when it does, we're excited.
Mm-hmm.
The Manson episode, we also have all the birth times, so it's always fun when we have multiple people and we have all the birth times.
Mm-hmm. So she has her sun in Aquarius and her moon. So she was born on a new moon in Aquarius. And remember that LACI also had her moon in Aquarius.
Oh my God, I forgot about it already. Mm-hmm. Oh wow.
And then they're both Aries rising. So she's an Aries rising. There's a lot of similarities on their charts with how close everything was. But her Venus is in Pisces. Her Mars is in Capricorn. Jupiter in Pisces, Ceres in Pisces, Pholus in Pisces, Lilith in Pisces. She still has Chiron in Aries. Juno is in Aries. So it kind of seems like, all these placements where Scott likes places, the energies that he likes are coming through. And there's this like asteroid of commitment here in Aries on her chart. So I think it makes him feel kind of like he's really a little bit extra committed to her for like not a good reason, but
that's really interesting.
Just feels probably good to him, man. It's just so much. Her midheaven is also in Capricorn.
Whoa.
Like how we were talking about, because they have the same rising.
Yeah.
So how we were talking about how LACI becomes known for that situation because of Scott.
So does
Same for Amber, except Amber also has her Mars there and her Vesta in the 10th house right over the line in Aquarius. So she becomes known for this like Capricorn level case involvement due to Scott's Capricorn North Node of Jupiter, but also for taking action, the Mars.
Yes.
Being like an active participant in the situation and being devoted to making a difference, Vesta and Aquarius.
Wow.
So I feel like she has, she's kind of known, she's also known for like that passionate element with Mars there, like, she was the lover, like she was the, it's kind of like sexy kind of way in that, but unfortunately, people are looking at it as a negative. At her, kind of,
It sucks because until things hit the news, she thought she was having this great new relationship and like that maybe she had found the one.
Yeah.
And that things were going really well and it was really like good connection and listening to their phone calls, like even after she knew because police told her to keep talking to him like nothing is wrong, like you have to keep it up. Like you can feel the vibe between them, and it's like kind of playful. It's kind of like it has this like I don't even, what is the word? It's sexy, but in like a sweet way. It has like it has a sexual quality to it. Like there's one where she's like talking about the lingerie she's wearing. And and it's like, but it's like cute how she's saying it. It's also like got this sexy vibe to it. So her vibe is so interesting. Like she has a cute, but also she has this like sexy side because the pictures that were released of her were like modeling photos that were like, sexy. Like she had posed for them, like a boudoir session.
Yeah.
So she did have that side to her, but it like came off so sweet.
It came off so sweet.
It did. Like.
Yeah, she has such a sweet little stellium in Pisces, she's got Venus and Jupiter and Ceres.
Oh, Venus and Pisces makes so much sense for her.
Yeah, and then, her Capricorn Mars is like kind of what gives her that kind of like solid, like stable action in life, and it's funny because it's square to his Mars, so it's like their actions aren't going to line up. And
oh, wow.
Yeah, as they get more involved with each other.
Yeah, 6 weeks in, actions not lining up. Not at all. She's not into the way he's doing things.
No.
Another thing that just popped in my head, that one of their conversations that Scott was trying to say that he didn't cheat on her to Amber. He's like, I didn't cheat on you. And she's like, you're married. What do you mean you didn't cheat on me? His framing of things is so out of control.
Very Neptunian.
Yeah, his the way he's kind of like his narrative is so interesting. Where he didn't think he had cheated on Amber.
Mm-hmm.
He literally had the balls to say, I never cheated on you.
This is something that comes up a lot when you have Neptune on your ascendant. And so he's got this almost like Pisces rising type of vibe where they can come off like, you almost have to be careful when you have that kind of rising because people are going to believe in what you say. Like people are going to kind of like you're speaking of God, you know.
That's a lot of cult leader energy. I know. I've always heard that like Pisces risings could easily start a cult. So.
And then that having that extra little charm of Sagittarius in there.
That helps. And his nice little Libra stellium to put even more charm on there.
Oh, yeah.
He's just laying it on thick always.
And he knows he can. I think he's like built a lot of his life on using that energy that way. So it's very natural to him with the way he operates his chart, his energies. It's really fascinating. And again, like for Amber's chart, like his Neptune stuff is in her 8th house. On her north node, so like a lot of this is really like karmic. I almost kind of think that like these three had like a past life situation together because of how much like lines up on the nodes. Yeah, and her south node is Gemini, so she probably felt kind of comfortable with his Gemini moon. Their Venus placements are in opposite signs, so sometimes that can feel like, oh, they're like the other side of me. It's like a completion type energy.
Oh, that's interesting.
So it's interesting also on Amber's chart where she has the stellium in the 11th house of Mercury retrograde, the moon, sun, Pallas, Lilith, Pholus, and Venus, like all there. And so that's like a lot of this like public advocating kind of like communication on like the collective level. Like people in the society, like I feel like that's really interesting how, you know, and this is not like an active Mercury. This isn't like Mercury direct where you're like out there and you're speaking what you think and like making it really like, this is happening right now and this is what I want to talk about. It's like she's kind of like subdued about it. Like she's kind of gives a little away and then it's like all this reflective information. Like, oh, this is what's been happening. This is what happened, and kind of like it's almost very Mercury retrograde. Where kind of, you're getting some of it kind of like in.
I would love to read her book because I feel like her delivery, even throughout the case, has this subdued quality to it, where she's being forthcoming, but the way she delivers has this feel that's like it's exactly.
It can be very poetic kind of approach, and also just think about when you go through Mercury retrograde, right? Like you're having things from the recent past kind of pop up.
Yeah.
Like it's like she's doing that for the society probably pretty often, and especially with this case, like she like maybe you would find out something like during Mercury retrograde energy, like, oh, I didn't pay that bill I meant to pay. Oh, there was a typo on that email, like, and it made a difference, or I forgot to make this plan. I forgot to maintenance my car, and now it's popping up. Like, for this situation, it's like she's like, hey, I've been actually dating that guy that.
And then reviewing it all and looking back at it all and with fresh new eyes. Like now knowing this new information, it's like I'm gonna review everything I just lived through.
Yeah, and she made like this. It's kind of empowering and decision making, and it's about her relationship. It's all these things that are in. Venus, Lilith, Pallas, it's all these things that are in her 11th house of kind of public speaking, public speeches, things like that.
That all makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. She has a lot on just that last, that last quadrant of the chart, and I feel like that's that's typically a pretty open-minded, unique, like big thinker kind of personality.
Yeah.
And her north node also being in the 8th house, I feel it's just so similar to LACI's chart, how like the things that triggered their charts would trigger the same type of placements, but it's a little bit different still.
Right.
So like they're both dealing with the same situations, but like in a different way. Yeah. or one of them is like the subject of the trial, and one of them is like actively helping in the trial against the same guy.
And it's so interesting. Amber was really the only evidence the prosecution had, and we'll get into that a little bit more. I'm not sure if you're ready to move into that yet or not.
Yeah, I also have these transit charts. I'm not sure when we want to do those.
I feel like the transits, once we kind of get through the next like big piece.
Sounds good.
Because I think it comes into play much more when you have more information about the case itself.
Let's do that.
So another really interesting thing about the relationship with Scott and Amber, and in interviews, Scott just fucked himself with these interviews. So everything he said and did made him seem extremely guilty long before the trial ever started. The police have not arrested him. LACI's still missing. Like, nobody knows what is going on. But
his lies were not Scorpio enough to. He relied too much on that Neptune, Sag type thing.
Like hoping it would work out.
It doesn't work like that when the court system's coming down on you.
Yeah,
when facts and evidence are coming down, it doesn't.
The thing
you can't sag your way through something.
The thing about this case is there's really not facts and evidence.
Well, they have messages, they have recordings, they have, you know what I mean?
But none of it's actually evidence. I mean, they can catch him in lies, basically. Yeah. But there's not really.
That's not referring to lies.
Got it. Yeah, there's definitely a lot of ways to catch him in lies because he just can't stop talking to the media. So Scott also, one of the big ones that is a huge problem for me and for like everybody who knew LACI, he claimed that LACI knew about the affair with Amber Frey. So in his mind, this wasn't even an issue, which is why he didn't tell the police about it. This is insane because he says in one of the interviews that he told LACI about the affair in early December, yet continued to have the affair. I don't fucking think so. Also, LACI's friends and family said there's absolutely no way this is true. She didn't keep anything in her life private. Nothing. She was super open about everything going on. She was very fiery. This is not something that she would have brushed off. Scott claimed in an interview that LACI had made peace with it. And the interviewer was a female, and she was like, your almost 9-month pregnant wife was just at peace with the affair? And he goes, you didn't know our relationship. Like, he got really defensive. And then he said LACI was, and corrected himself and said is, a great person. So he started.
And she was also missing right away.
I
can't find her. Where is she?
So he has some slips of the tongue in there. But like LACI would have been so pissed off about this affair, and everybody in her inner circle would have known. Her parents would have known. Scott's parents would have known.
She talked to her mom every day.
Her brother would have known, and probably kicked Scott's ass. Like, everybody would have known about this. This was not something that would have been a thing that she would have been like, oh, we're just keeping it in the marriage. LACI wasn't like that. No. That was not her personality at fucking all. So, circumstantial as fuck with this case. As I mentioned, the prosecution didn't have any definitive evidence at all after they finally apprehended Scott. So we're kind of going to bounce around with this timeline because it's just so much information. But they did, during their investigation, they did exhaustive searches of his home, the family computer, the marina, the warehouse where Scott kept his fertilizer, his boat, everything. They found nothing incriminating, no physical evidence, no evidence that there was even a crime committed in the Peterson home. With the lack of all this evidence, it's hard to say whether there was a timeline for him to kill LACI and clean up and do all these things and go to the marina and dump her body and clean out his truck and do all of this in the middle of the day. So it's hard to really say any of this. The prosecution, when they finally took him to court, they claimed that he killed LACI the night before, after 8:30, sometime after she got off the phone with her mom, and cleaned everything up. They said this in their opening statement, which didn't work because, as we already talked about, neighbors said that they saw the dog walking. And there were also some computer searches that contradict that LACI could be deceased. So it's really confusing. There's just a lot we don't know in this case, and a lot we can't tied down because of the so many conflicting statements. We already talked about the difference in the sightings of Mackenzie, their family golden retriever. And it also feels like there's a ton of red herrings in this case. Even like Scott himself is kind of a red herring. Like, just the way he exists in the world is a distraction from evidence, a distraction from the case. This whole affair became the main focus. Like, another crazy thing, there was also a confirmed robbery near the family home right around the time of LACI's disappearance. This was investigated, though. They did find the perpetrators, and it turns out the date of the robbery was actually 2 days after LACI went missing. So that one was ruled out.
Okay.
But it was one of those things where...
a weird coincidence.
Yes, it was a weird coincidence, and also neighbors were confused. One neighbor said that she saw the robbery the same day that LACI went missing. So
these neighbors are not strict on their time.
The neighbors want to be helpful, but they're really not helpful. The thing is, there's so many possible theories too. Like, one of them was really crazy. There was a speculation there was a satanic cult involved at one point. Satan is usually brought up in a case like this. But 4 months go by. No updates. No sign of LACI. Her due date passes. It's just, that gets me. That gets me. So that day passes. She's not checking into a hospital. There's no signs of life. There's no body. There's no evidence of a crime even. So the investigators are in a really tough spot. But trigger warning. Big time trigger warning here. The super sensitive information. We're going to talk about how LACI was discovered. It's awful, you guys.
I'm very curious, but I'm sure it's going to be terrible.
It is. It makes me want to cry already. So the remains of LACI were recovered in the San Francisco Bay on April 14th, 2003, 4 months after her disappearance. And that is a long time to be in the water. That is a really long time. Connor was discovered about 12 hours later. His body was no longer inside of LACI. So he was completely removed from her body. At this point, the reason the satanic cult thing kind of came in is because LACI, there were some similarities with another 8-month pregnant woman who was abducted.
Oh.
So this is where it kind of is like, oh shit, maybe this is a real theory, or like a possible lead, but the conditions of the body were similar. And this is fucking terrible. This is so fucking terrible. LACI was missing her hands, her feet, and her head. She was just a torso. That's all they discovered. And same with this other case of another woman who was 8 months pregnant in the area. So that's a really interesting similarity. And all this is right near the Berkeley Marina where Scott had been fishing the day of the disappearance. Connor's body, like I said, entirely outside of LACI's body. So it's unclear whether he was like intentionally removed somehow or if it was related to just being submerged with the advanced decomposition. His body was extremely well preserved. So that does make me think that he was in the womb protected or not.
Until some point of being underwater.
Yes.
Yeah.
That there was a significant amount of time that passed where he was protected. Like he was fully intact with his body. But one thing that was kind of strange is there was some twine like kind of wrapped around his neck region. And it's not clear whether that was just something floating, with the tide and rolling, or if it was something where the baby was removed, which is just like, I fucking hope not. Like, I hope it's the other thing. Like, but it's disturbing, it's gruesome, it's terrible, it's awful. Like, what happened in this case is just so sad, and it's impossible to know for sure. Like, the investigation didn't really follow the leads. They followed Scott.
Right.
So they didn't really look at other possibilities of what could have happened here. Again, there's no physical or forensic evidence to link Scott to this crime. The affair with Amber Frey and Scott's behavior was the evidence. Like, then there was some evidence of detectives kind of doing some shady shit, trying to make it look more like Scott was part of this. One detective claimed that there was a full-page ad for a defense lawyer on the counter, like it was a phone book open to a page of a defense attorney, which I just doesn't seem correct. That just
also,
seems stupid.
The phone book would have other things on the page too.
Right. But in the court of public opinion, Scott didn't stand a chance. But like again, back to this timeline that that they keep talking about is LACI was alive at 8:30 p.m. the next morning. Scott says he left at 9:30 for the marina. LACI was supposedly making online searches around 8:40 that morning.
Okay.
So the thing that was looked up was a sunflower umbrella. LACI loves sunflowers.
Yeah.
Who else would be looking at that? You know what I mean? Unless Scott intentionally was like, I'm going to go look up sunflower umbrellas to establish a timeline. That gives less than an hour to murder her and take her and do all these things, and it's daylight. So it's hard to set up that timeline. And neighbors had seen LACI walking her dog in the neighborhood as well, or claimed to have seen her. There were other women in the area who looked similar to LACI who walked their dogs that day too, which came out where there was one lady who was kind of heavy set and had short brown hair at the time. I saw an interview with her and she was like, they very well could have seen me. Yeah. I have a golden retriever.
These are not super reliable neighbors.
No, eyewitness accounts are never reliable in any case. Yeah. They are not, the brain does not work like a recording device. The brain doesn't work like a video camera. We encode memories in a very specific way. Like that's how our brains work.
Very easily to be tampered with, that kind of memory.
And two people can see the same thing and remember it totally differently. Yeah. They can go through the same experience and have completely different memories. So we always have to be wary of that. Even though eyewitness accounts are extremely helpful, they're not super reliable because memories change and shift over time, and we forget the little details. And like, I can't remember what I did on Christmas, the day after Christmas this last year. Like, if somebody asked me to establish my timeline of events, I'd be like,
let me look at my phone, see if there's anything
we didn't have that
that I can remember. Right.
We didn't have that luxury of the smartphone to see what did I post that day. You know, so it's just a little bit different here. Very, very sad. But once they found the bodies of LACI and Connor, it's time to get their guy. At this point, they're like, we're getting Scott Peterson. Like, we're ready to arrest him.
They're ready, yeah.
Apprehending him was interesting. He was arrested with $10,000 in cash near the Mexican border. What? He also had dyed his facial hair and the hair on his head to this like terrible orange blonde. Like he did it himself.
They did the bleach job.
Not a good look to try to disguise himself. So it looked like he was trying to flee. He also had an ID that wasn't his. It was his brother's. But he had convenient excuses for why he had these things.
Oh.
The $10,000 in cash, this one really I was like, this is such bullshit. So Scott's mother, Jackie, said she accidentally withdrew $10,000 from the wrong account, from an account she shared with Scott, and she chose to pay him back with cash.
No.
Why is your mom getting $10,000 out of an account to begin with? Like,
no.
That's not, nobody's just like, I just need 10 grand real quick. Like, that doesn't make any sense. He also said that he had his brother's ID to like get some sort of discount at the golf course or for something to do with his golf plans that day. It's just really bad lies. Really, really bad lies. So that's pretty much the whole finding LACI, discovering her, the timelines. The only other things I have to go through are like the trial and the sentencing. So I don't know if there's anything specific you want to touch on with the transits. Yeah, I want to hear.
Some things.
Yeah, I'm ready for it.
Okay. If you are in Northwest Arkansas and looking for affordably priced photography and videography services, then you should definitely reach out to Nice NWA.
Yes, you should.
With photo sessions starting at $100, now is a great time to update your company's headshots, get graduation photos, new family pictures, and more. Looking for video work instead?
Yes, videos start at just $300 and are a great way to boost your marketing engagement online with current customers and potential new customers. It's also a great way to create highlight reels of your next event or just to tell your story in an exciting and creative way. Nice is not just locally owned and operated, but is also a certified minority and veteran-owned business that started right here in Northwest Arkansas in 2017.
So, go check them out on Facebook or on Instagram at NiceNWA or by visiting their website at nicenwa.com. Okay, so I pulled like just dates around like December, and wanted to see kind of what was going on at that time. And when did you say that he got together with her?
In November. Let's see, I've got the exact date because she said it in her test
Because the 19th, there was an eclipse.
Oh my gosh, I think it was the 20th. It was either the 20th or the 2nd.
But either way, it's around an eclipse.
It's in November.
And then there is another eclipse on December 4th, which is a very similar timeline to what we just had this past winter.
That's crazy.
This past year. So this eclipse series, having it transition from this Gemini Sag eclipse series into the Scorpio Taurus one, is exactly what they were experiencing here.
Wow.
And the nodes were lined up the same way. This, the north node kind of leaning, like getting up into a Taurus, and the south node moving over from Sagittarius to Scorpio.
Wow.
That's what we were.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's all that was going on then. So generally speaking, for all of us, some of those themes might still kind of be like resurging with like things that we see on the news and the collective, But for them, I think that this triggers so much on their charts, having the nodes and these eclipses happening in Sagittarius, where Scott has so much on his chart, and this is also lighting up the girls' 8th houses.
Oh my gosh, both of them.
Yeah, which has to do with death and chains and dark things transition, like things kind of hiding under the surface that can have to do with sex, and then on Scott's chart, the north node is his moon, and Saturn. He was also, everyone should know this, he was undergoing his Saturn return at this time, his second Saturn return.
No. Oh my God.
So anything, when your Saturn return goes through, like you're really like, everything that's not serving you is kind of going away. You're going under a lot of stress, all this change, all of this can be really intense because, like it's hitting his like natal opposition on his chart at the same time. So he's getting his Saturn return, and like there's the north node on his moon and the south node on his ascendant so it's this really intense like opposition he's currently experiencing. So you gotta keep that in mind because all of that's been going on. And then Venus and Mars and Juno were all entering Scorpio in December that year. Wow. Yeah, so that's lighting up all of his Scorpio stellium. There's all this stuff. There's also Pluto and Mercury and, this eclipse happening in Sagittarius. Chiron was moving through Capricorn where his Jupiter is. So all this like trauma kind of energy is hitting his Jupiter, as well as about to hit his north node, which we'll look at here because I pulled April dates too. Oh my gosh. And then Neptune was in Aquarius. I think it's really interesting how he was kind of doing this Neptunian lying thing with this double Aquarius. Also born on a new moon. Aries was getting Ceres and Lilith moving through them, so I think that's really fascinating how it became this time of like empowerment, disempowerment, like foundation of love, things shifting for both the Aries risings.
Wow. Yeah, the transits are crazy.
Yeah. And so the girls, LACI and Amber, also were having, so their south node was in Gemini, remember? And so their north node was in Sagittarius. The nodes were flipped for them, which marks a karmic life path turning point for both of them.
Oh my God.
And since it has to do with 8th house and 2nd house, death is a very likely thing to happen during that time. This is also like one of the last of this eclipse series as it was moving into the next one. So I think it really makes a lot of sense how it was like wrapping up all of the things that have been going on over the past couple years. Oh my God, it's so intense. I'm like kind of like feeling the stirring in my chest.
This story is like that. Like during the research, I felt that way too. Like it just, there's something about it.
And Lilith was, on her ascendant in December, squaring her Saturn. I think that's also very telling.
And that's for LACI.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. some of this I said. Okay, so that Lilith was involved with this on Scott's chart too, since he has it like at the end of Scorpio, kind of near that ascendant as well. But this is really just gonna make him feel like he's stuck and like kind of delusional and desperate, you know, like a little, like he's kind of losing his grip a bit, I feel, with these eclipses. And the moon's coming up, the moon phase is coming up next, also trigger his moon and these placements on his chart. I would be curious what happened like the younger years when this eclipse series happened the previous time, because they met in like 1994, and right before that is when the eclipse is like similar to this, but like opposite direction would have happened.
Oh, wow.
So it's kind of like the eclipse is almost marked them like getting together, and then them like yeah.
The other thing that you mentioned earlier is like you can see like Scott kind of like is like thrill seeking a little bit, and he is doing that. Like early in it, he's juggling these two relationships, and it's like real exciting and it's risky and it's dangerous, and he is kind of getting this like thrill seeking.
Yeah.
In this too, it's just so it's so much. It's so much.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to say. Like, I kind of wonder like how these patterns have shown up for him before, or if it's just kind of like built up to this, especially with the Saturn return hitting at the same time this time.
Yeah, it's impossible to say, but it's fun to speculate. It's fun to talk about and like, you think about.
There was next a full moon in Gemini right after that, with his major Saturn return. Retrograde energy. It was conjunct the full moon at this time, and this was on the 19th.
Oh wow!
Of December.
So this would have been when he's on that trip.
Yeah,
he would have been on that trip with LACI and his parents, and like going to this cute little beach town. Like, oh my gosh!
And then right after that, on the 21st, is winter solstice, when it shifts into Capricorn season, which has to do with his Jupiter North Node. Lighting that up, and I feel like when he did this on the around the 24th, like it was probably like hitting just right,
Yeah.
However this timed out, and then the next new moon following was conjunct Chiron in Capricorn on January 2nd.
Wow.
So I feel like all of that lines up on his chart in this really intense way.
It's just that, especially like to think about the New Year's thing, and then the January. He's telling all these lies, and he's living in this illusion, and he's like everybody's grieving LACI and doing this big, huge memorials, and he's just oh my god, like it's so crazy,
right? Jupiter wasn't moving through Leo at the time, so I think it's kind of it makes everything just so vibrant and grand, like for everybody at that time. It makes this like fire trine with their charts.
Wow.
Yeah. I think it would have been trine his Jupiter for a minute, and then it would have but not. I think that would have been a little like before, maybe when they were getting together.
Yeah.
Like how serendipitous we met.
Right. It just escalated so fast. I don't know if he expected it to escalate that fast, or if he thought this was going to be like a fun little fling he could have, and it just kind of like escalated so fast, and then he's like kind of moving in more of like a desperate energy, but also enjoying kind of the riskiness and having the two lives, but realizing he's got to come up with a way to deal with it.
Yeah, because around that time, Mars would have been he would have been having his Mars return for the year as well when he met Amber.
Time to take action.
It's so, the passion, getting caught up in the passion, I had a couple notes here from that other side I mentioned earlier. I thought were kind of interesting. They talk about how Mars and Uranus, as well as his sun, fell in her 7th house. Let's see, kind of always. Oh, did I put these in the wrong spot? I think I did. I think I meant to do this on their relationship part. But it talks about how she was it made sense for her to have a combustible, like unpredictable partner since it's in her 7th house. And not like cooperative, with that Mars Uranus conjunction. She says her North Node was conjunct his Neptune with his moon exactly opposing, like, so you do see again, like I already mentioned that.
Yeah.
That intensity there. Let's see. Trying to see what is still relevant. I probably already kind of talked about it. The here it is. This is why I moved into this part.
No, it's hard to talk after.
Okay, I found what I wanted. It says the tragedy is they never got together. If they never got together in the first place, maybe what they meant. When she disappeared, transit Saturn was conjunct the composite South Node, and transit Uranus was opposing the composite Mercury and conjunct the Mars Chiron midpoint. These aren't exactly headlines, but the transiting Sun just into Capricorn was moving around that brutal composite T-square of Saturn, Pluto, Mars, and transit Neptune was just over the opposition to the composite Sun, Venus. So for those of you who are...
Yeah, that blew my mind, and I'm fairly in tune with astrology.
So
I'm like,
it was a lot all at once,
the
but for those of you that
I don't know about that.
That's another way to work with 2 charts. So
Oh,
you're kind of taking this like midpoint composites, but
okay.
I don't usually talk about a lot of that. But for those of you who would be interested, I wanted to include that because it was really interesting.
Yeah,
that's why I put it in this part on my
okay.
notes. The other stuff was a mistake. Yeah. So it's really interesting.
I definitely think.
Do you have any?
No, I think I'm good there. I'm ready to see the bodies found date. Like with all of that, like I'm ready to kind of shift forward to the transits in April because it was just so long with no updates in this case, and all of a sudden here it all is, and everything escalated really fast after that, and the arrest and the trial, which we'll get into the trial. It was a whole lot of things, but
all right, let's get to it.
Oh, okay.
That's you.
Oh, okay.
That's you.
Me. That's me. Okay. So trial, sentencing, all this stuff. So people, like I said, were super obsessed with this case. It was a media frenzy. Like everybody knew about it. Everybody was following it. It was such a big deal that they had to draw raffle tickets to see which members of the public could sit in on the trial each day. It was like winning the lottery. So they would call out numbers and people were like all excited, like, oh, it's me, I get to go in. So people were lining up at like 5 and 6 in the morning outside the courthouse and camping out to be able to get a chance, even like a raffle ticket, to get a seat in the courtroom that day. Yes.
That makes sense, but hey.
And people were so vocal, like there were people there that were advocating for Scott. There were people there that were like wanting Scott to die. There were people that were just like, I mean, it was such a circus.
This would be a hard one to have like a good jury for.
Thank you for saying that. We're going to talk so much about the poison jury.
Okay.
I think in total there were 3 jurors that had to be like removed from the case. And
only 3.
But this is the thing with the screening process. It was almost impossible because they couldn't get people to say, like, everybody knew about it. They couldn't find any jurors that said they didn't think Scott was already guilty. They had to settle for finding jurors that would say that they would consider the other alternatives. They would consider other alternatives, that was hard to find too. And mostly they just had to get people to say that they would give him a fair trial according to the law and the evidence.
Wow.
So it was really, really fucking bad. It was completely poisoned. So Scott enters the courtroom on the first day of trial. He is in shackles. He's charged with 2 counts of murder. 1st-degree murder for LACI and 2nd-degree murder for Connor. He enters a plea of not guilty. In the end, he was found guilty of both charges. So he was found guilty of these crimes. Unfortunately, they didn't have anything but circumstantial evidence. And this ended up being a death penalty case. And when you look at it on a surface level, absolutely, this is an eligible death penalty case when you consider a pregnant mother who's almost full term and her child, being murdered.
Right.
Like, yeah, absolutely, the perpetrator, we would want death penalty to be on the table for something like this. But if you're going for the death penalty, you need to have some fucking evidence.
Yeah.
Other than he had an affair.
I think that's true.
This is a disgusting injustice, I feel, because of that. They didn't have anything. It's not a good thing. Like, we as citizens of the United States are protected by certain laws. And the laws that, obviously you can think whatever you want about Scott Peterson, but I'm coming from the standpoint of the law and objectivity. And that is what was not happening in this case at all. So I feel like DNA evidence should be there for a death penalty. Like, I think you should be able to definitively say the person committed this crime. It better 100% be them. Like, this is somebody's life. This is insane when you think about that.
Yeah, I agree with
but
you.
there was no forensic evidence in this case at all. Really nothing. The publicity made it impossible for Scott to receive a fair trial. One of the most concerning things to me is that they even released details of Scott's alibi before they found LACI's body. So it is possible that someone else chose that dump site 4 months later based on Scott's alibi, that he was at the marina that day.
Yeah.
So the convenience of if you had done this and it wasn't Scott and somebody did abduct LACI and do something and had buried her body somewhere, and then what if they dug it up and put it on the shore? Or, you know what I mean? Like, it leaves reasonable doubt. Reasonable doubt is the name of the game when you're talking about being a juror.
Yes.
Like, that is, you have to be able to be certain beyond any reasonable doubt that he committed this crime. The evidence just does not back it up. And I compare this to the Casey Anthony case. You can go back and watch that episode. That was season 2, episode 1. We talked about that and how it was the prosecution majorly failed in that case and in this case as well. Like, if you are going to go after somebody and you don't have the evidence, like, you're risking it all.
Yeah.
You can't just take someone to court and, like, prosecute them for murder because they're a liar. Casey Anthony, 100% proven to be a liar. Scott Peterson, 100% proven to be a liar.
Yep.
The Casey Anthony case, I feel, had better evidence than this case for Scott Peterson. So he did not receive a fair trial. An appellate court agreed that the publicity surrounding the trial made it unconstitutional. His rights were violated immensely in this entire thing. So, again, I'm not trying to be an advocate for Scott Peterson. What I'm trying to be is an advocate for the law. Because, like, these types of mistakes really deprived him of his rights. And that's not okay. That's not a world that any of us want to be a part of or live in. So in November, yes, justice, but with evidence. In November 2015, the defense filed a petition claiming that a juror lied on her application. And so this part is really interesting where she did go public with people, like, I guess on like a chat forum or something. Saying, like, framing herself as being an impartial juror because she came in to replace one that had been removed. And then on a social platform, she was saying, like, I can't believe they bought it. Like, those attorneys are so fucking stupid. I can't wait to go in there and fry Scott Peterson. So there were people who were trying to get on this jury simply to...
Right. Absolutely.
Mess it up because this trial was so huge. And, like, the jurors that were dismissed for receiving death threats, one of them had his vehicle vandalized. I mean, like, it was insane what was going on and how invested people were and how emotional people were and how irrational people were, like, watching and speculating on this case as it was happening.
Very Jupiter and Leo.
Yeah. The other thing is there's also evidence that LACI was alive after Scott left. It's not, I mean, circumstantial evidence, but it's enough evidence to cast reasonable doubt.
Yeah.
This was not a fair trial. And then on June 2nd, 2020, so exactly 2 years ago tomorrow, from the time we're recording this, the California Supreme Court heard arguments on Scott's appeal. They thought that the jurors were improperly excused. Some of them were removed from the case for simply like trying to keep it organized because the foreman was removed. Mm-hmm. And he was doing a really good job. I think he was an attorney.
Okay.
They also had a physician on the jury. So you have some like intelligent professional people, and those were the jurors that were being removed, which is so interesting how that all goes. Yeah, they allowed jurors to go out on Scott's boat, which is kind of weird.
What?
Like, they just allowed a lot of things as, like, evidence that weren't really evidence or necessary. Yeah. And that was a huge error on the part of the judge to allow that kind of shit. So just things that make it unconstitutional. And then the juror questionnaire results showed that almost half of the jurors had already concluded Scott was guilty before the trial even started. So, like, your jury is so tainted. They only moved this, 50 minutes away. They did not sequester the jury, so they didn't, like, put them up in a hotel and guard them from media. They let them all go home. There was no way to avoid knowing about this and hearing people talk about it because it was all people were talking about. So poisoned AF for the jury. But then on August 24th, 2020, in a unanimous decision, the Supreme Court, this went all the way to the Supreme Court, upheld the conviction of Scott Peterson, but overturned the death sentence. So on September 22nd, 2021, just a few months ago, it was ruled that he would be resentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole for the first-degree murder of LACI, and then a concurrent sentence of 15 years for second-degree murder of Connor. One other really sad fact is, as part of the evidence, or in the courtroom, they actually had Connor's body.
Oh, wow.
And one juror said that he was fully preserved, all his facial features were there, he was translucent, and kind of looked a little bit like an alien, but for that reason. But aside from that Connor was fully preserved and looking at a baby, which I can't even imagine how disturbing that was to the jurors. And another thing, people were really upset that Scott didn't have a lot of emotion in court, which I say this on every episode pretty much. Your attorney's going to tell you not to be emotional in court. That's a bad thing because they're going to read your emotions and they're going to say you're faking it and you're going to be too emotional or not emotional enough. You can't win.
And he already was not emotional about this. So, it's...
His mother, Jackie, on a phone call with Scott, said, you come from a long line of Stoics. Everybody in their family's kind of like this.
Okay.
So this is a personality trait that seems to be consistent in his family. They don't show a lot of emotion. So and the emotion part is always I hate when they bring that shit up. I know. And try to say, because you can't. I mean, some people deal with dissociation and completely dissociate during their trial. Which they're gonna look dead behind the eyes because they're not really mentally there. So it's just. I just hate when people read too much into that. But Scott's not going to be executed. He's indisputably a scumbag. I do think that my personal opinion is that he is responsible for LACI's disappearance in some way, whether directly or indirectly or involving someone. I don't really know. Nobody knows. But I do not believe there was enough evidence to convict him of these crimes beyond a reasonable doubt. There's just not evidence. If they had better evidence, I would have loved to see that in this case if that wasn't what happened. And the saddest part is that Connor would have been 19 years old today. And this child never got to have a life. So let's look at the other transit charts, because that is all the info I've got to formally. Right. I still have so much case information in my head that I could probably
you'll still that will come up. In. So I got curious, and I we might lose you, Patreon. We're a little low battery over there.
Low battery happening.
But we're wrapping it up. I mean, I kind of got curious and I looked at the 24th. From Modesto and see where the ascendant was throughout the day, because usually the things that are kind of coming up in our little game of life come up at the time around the time of the ascendant passing over them, because it's it's kind of like I'm trying to think of a way to like
it's like an energy passing through, like it, right?
Yeah, like it's like the focus is being put on that. Like if you had a timeline in your video game, it'd be like, okay, it's time for this to happen now. Like it's time for, you know, like there's all these things kind of going, but like the focus is on a certain event throughout the day. So like one of my favorite astrologers, he's a Vedic astrologer. He really lives by this motto of like, we live and then we reflect on the charts. He doesn't like to look too much ahead. Like he likes to live and let astrology speak through his experience. Anyway.
No, that's really beautiful.
He was talking about it.
I like to see.
I like to do both.
I like to see everything far in advance and prepare myself.
Very Virgo rising.
I know. I can't help it.
Can't remember what his rising is, but anyway, he was talking about he had his friends over and they were sitting out on the patio. You know, it was like sunset time, and they were just having a conversation, maybe a drink. I don't know. And he said it was so fascinating when he looked back that like at the time of like different topics coming up in conversation, it would line up with like how the ascendant was moving on the chart. Like it would, like whatever just kind of bubbled up, like whatever, because you know it's like you're very in the moment. You're very,
gosh!
Like, just like perceiving the energies that's coming to you and all of that, and so like he's saying like it lined up with the aspects on the ascendant.
That's really cool,
right? I'm surprised I haven't mentioned that before. I think about that a lot. But anyway,
I feel like maybe you have, but it's been a long time, and
I don't think I have. Maybe. It doesn't feel familiar, but maybe. So I wanted to see on the 24th, in their time zone and everything, what was coming up on the horizon. And it's literally like a phrase that people use, like, oh, it's coming up on the horizon.
Oh yeah, like whatever's on the horizon. Oh my gosh, wow. Astrology sneaks its way.
It does, because people, I feel like, pick up on things whether they kind of know it or not. And some of those phrases might be kind of originated
right, like
from
the energy
meanings,
in the room.
Yeah.
And like all these, yeah.
Yeah, I just try to learn those phrases and use them a lot.
I think it's fun.
It makes people feel more comfortable, even though I'm telling them astrology.
Yeah.
So anyway, 9:15 that morning, ascendant just entered Aquarius. Huh. And what's in Aquarius right now? Neptune, Uranus, Pallas, and both the girls' moon signs.
I was gonna say the moon signs too. Yeah.
Yeah. So already that's pretty fascinating. And this would be square to Scott's sun placement exactly.
Wow.
Like right at the beginning of that time. And then as we move through to like 10:15, it gets into later Aquarius. And this is going to be square to his, like, it's going to square off with his Juno and his Mercury and Lilith. And it comes over the transit Pallas, which is like it's time to make a decision, it's time to make a choice. Like we're strategizing, you know, mm-hmm. And Uranus, which triggers his unpredictability, like what are we gonna do? Triggers his Mars, triggers his Ceres, like all of that stuff is going on in Libra, and he already has Pallas in Libra. I think that this is like really triggering, like, okay, it's time to do, you know, it feels like a let's do something, we gotta do something. But I guess it could also be like making the decision to go fishing instead of golfing, you know, but yeah. I feel like, you know, we won't know exactly how these energies played out, but it does kind of give me this like suspicion, extra suspicion.
I was wondering if that would happen, and then like a Scorpio sussing another Scorpio. I'm also like obsessed with that.
I feel like he's bullshitting about everything. That's my opinion.
You're like a lie detector.
I really feel like I kind of, like, not that I resonate and identify with it, but I can kind of like feel like the way he might
like you have a deeper understanding of this energy.
Yeah, and I was with a Sag rising with similar to this like for a long time. So I feel like I kind of this Gemini Sag.
Like
I was raised around Gemini Sag energy. Like I kind of just feel like this is
you're onto it.
Anyway, not about me though. If you want my opinion, that's what it is.
I did want your opinion.
I know you
specifically asked for it, so yeah.
And then as we get more, you know, into like, 10:30, 11, like the ascendant is moving over into like Pisces, and for him, this is Pholus on his chart, like right at the beginning of Pisces. So, and that squares his ascendant. It squares his Neptune. It's just very like it's triggering all the right things on his chart for me. I mean, not
because
not
because if he did commit this crime, it would have been probably very quick, and at like by 9:15 he would have to jump into action to leave by 9:30.
Yeah.
He also allegedly had stopped by his warehouse at some point.
You know, in 8:15, the ascendant's on his north node. Like if we went back up further.
Okay.
Like
the whole morning.
This is very like.
Yeah, and then what about at 2:15 when he made the phone
I did
call?
look down there. I did look at 2:15. Which I think is maybe why I had it at 15.
And then again at 5:25. Like we got like fives in here. It's all like even fives, which is weird.
So 2:15 hits the end of Taurus.
Hey, beautiful, I'm leaving Berkeley. That's probably what it sounded like.
Yeah,
that's
exactly.
my impression. It's not good.
Exactly.
It's not a good impression.
And then by the time he would have been home, like an hour and a half later, it was between his North Node and Saturn. Or sorry, the North Node and Saturn, but also his Saturn because it's
right.
Yeah, it's his Saturn return. I don't know. I might be suspicious either way, but I don't feel. I feel like this kind of corroborates things for me a bit.
Yeah, that's all you need. This evidence could have been in court, actually. This probably would have been stronger evidence than what
energetic evidence. This was the energy he was working with at the time, and I think it's very
honestly,
telling.
It's better than what the prosecution had. So I feel like
oh God.
You could have done a better job prosecuting this case with no legal experience.
All right. I looked up also the dates the body were found, which was April 13th to 14th. So I just pulled like the evening of the 13th.
Yeah, they found her on the morning of the 14th. So at some point the bodies ended up on the shore. They were discovered by a runner.
Ooh, so the fact that they ended up on the shore makes so much more sense.
They were on the shore. They had washed up.
Okay,
and a runner found them and reported. Yeah.
Okay.
Connor wasn't found till 12 hours later, so LACI was found that morning because there's news coverage of it. And helicopters of them removing the body. Like, it was a big fucking deal. So the morning of the 14th is when the bodies are actually being removed from.
Okay, I actually want to pull, since you know like exact times, I kind of want to like get this more exact. And this is around Modesto still, right?
Yeah, it's in the San Francisco Bay.
Oh, okay, well I'll just pull for that.
Yeah, because this is by the Berkeley Marina, which is like 90 miles from Modesto. So we can pull that up. But yeah, and the fact that Connor wasn't found until like that evening. So the 14th was a full day of events.
Okay, I'm pulling for San Francisco.
Okay.
LACI found. That's what we'll call it. It was April 14th. So
2003.
Okay. Because when it pulled for me, it said 13th and 14th.
Interesting. Because with the news coverage and everything, like they show it, like you can see it. Like there's helicopters flying, like reporters are descending. They're reporting as the bodies are being taken out. Well, as LACI's body, because Connor still hadn't been discovered.
Okay, so what time roughly would you guess?
I would guess around 10 a.m.
Okay.
That's my guess. You know, it may have been a little earlier. It was definitely morning. And they may have said the exact time. One of the reporters who actually got the
rough is fine.
She got the first interview with Scott, which I thought was pretty cool. She gave a lot of info about this and what she was doing that day. And she got a call that morning telling her to go to the San Francisco Bay, like right away. And she was like finding out more information on her drive there. And by the time she got there were helicopters swarming and like she's reporting live and it was the whole thing.
Okay, so this chart is even better than the one I pulled. So around the time that she was found, first of all, the sun was in her first house And it had gotten, let me see exactly what it was moving over. It was moving over her Chiron.
Wow.
And I think that is really, to have it coming through your first house already is like, you're going to be seen. You're going to be, the spotlight is on you. And for it to be also on her trauma, on like her, on her death, like, earring fell out.
Oh no, the earring.
These are weird, but they're good. So I feel like that was just right away super,
very telling.
yes.
Very, very interesting.
Very big deal in my mind. That it was out of all the times it could have come up, like it came up as the sun was highlighting this part of her chart, exactly being found, being seen.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see, it would have been Lilith, Ceres, and Mercury were also over her sun, like exactly like where her sun placement is over in Taurus. So again, a lot of this like kind of empowering, and people are talking, like it's a lot of this like energetic focus on that area of the chart as well. There's Jupiter trines going on. Chiron was trine her sun in the first house. So a lot of this like Chiron stuff, Jupiter, we're being seen, we're being, the light is shining on us also literally.
Wow.
Also like something interesting, this is kind of a little bit like metaphorical, but like the sun moving from Pisces to Aries is like literally like this kind of like emerging from the waters into life and like and into the physical from the deep waters. Like it's just kind of poetic, I guess is what I'm trying to say. I feel like that's hard to like
it paints a picture, that's for sure, what was happening here.
So the North Node was just finally leaving. It was at the 29th degree, 56 seconds of getting into Taurus. It had just moved into Taurus, really getting us into this next eclipse season that we were talking about for the spring.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of all of this all happened like between these eclipses, which is intense how they hit her chart. Venus and Uranus and Pisces were on her stellium. And for Scott, this shows a lot of Chiron and Mars squares. Like Chiron and Mars were together and they were both square to his Mars.
And then he took
and they were conjunct Amber's.
Wow.
She was having her Mars return in that Capricorn thing we were talking about with, I'm going to just start repeating myself.
It's just so interesting because, like, after this happened, like, Scott goes on, basically it looks like he's going to flee.
Yeah, that's true. When was the fleeing thing?
It was, like, right when, like, in the same time.
Uh-huh.
I actually think maybe it was a little bit before, which is interesting. Or no, maybe it was after. I can't remember. I cannot remember. There's too much information in my brain for that timeline.
But around now.
Yeah.
Because on his chart, this was... I'm going to looking at the houses again.
Let's see if I can find.
Also, how much of this happens in his, like, 7th and 1st house? Like, so much of himself and relationships. Oh, himself and relationship. Like, that kind of...
Yeah. That was definitely front and center.
Uh-huh. So the eclipses are happening there, which mark major things in the relationship. Around the time that LACI would have been found, the Senate was going over Saturn and Gemini, which was his return placement. I bet a lot of these things kind of line up with his Saturn return.
Yeah.
If you were able to see like exact charts for things.
And then what about that evening? Anything for Connor? Because it would have been about 12 hours later. So if we look at like 10 p.m.
I almost forgot. Tthank you for reminding me.
Yeah. I was curious. Just
that moves the ascendant over to like Scorpio, moving into Sag. So it's 12 hours. That's a half a rotation around the zodiac.
Yeah.
So we are seeing them discovered like around the time of the nodes, like
switching.
Like at the like around when the ascendant hits north node, around when the ascendant hits the south node.
Wow.
And with how much of this was centered around the eclipse charts, like it really does make a lot of sense for me.
That's super fascinating.
It really is.
It's so sad. The whole thing is so sad. I mean, just the fact that we still don't know 100% what happened or who even did this. Did Scott actually even do this? Because I still don't feel confident 100%. You know, I speculate.
But there's a chance.
I mean, otherwise it's like, I don't know. There's just too many questions in this case. There's too many twists and turns. Like, if he did do it, I don't think he would confess. So that's where, like, I don't know. I just don't know. Do you have any more things that you want to...
I was just looking at the midheaven at the times, because when LACI was found, the midheaven was Aquarius Pisces, and then when Connor was found, it was like Leo Virgo, more likely Pisces and Virgo. Like I just looking at those oppositions and how that lines up with their charts, because on LACI's, you know, she's got that Pisces stellium, and it's all about like Mars and action and liberating herself with Lilith and stuff like it, and her moon was at the end of Aquarius. Like I feel like that ties in an interesting way. And then you know, I don't have Connor's chart,
right,
but I feel like by the time Connor was found, I mean, everybody was, this is the stuff that would be kind of on the public radar. So by the time he was found, like, it's the midheaven is lining up with Scott's midheaven.
Gosh.
So people are really like paying attention to him by the end of the day. By
the end of the day, absolutely.
Finding Connor.
What a tragedy. My heart continues to go out to the entire Rocha family, like, and honestly to the Peterson family as well. Like, even though Jackie has passed away, Lee Peterson still firmly believes that his son is innocent. He still advocates for Scott. He still has a relationship with his son, and both families really suffered a lot. In this case, like, anytime this happens, both sides end up really, it tears families apart, tears people apart, it tears everything apart, and it's just so sad, the loss of LACI. Like, you know, the Petersons lost a daughter that they loved. They lost their daughter-in-law that they did love, and then having to deal with the guilt of potentially their son doing this, and then trying to believe in his innocence. And
they all lost a grandkid.
They all lost a grandchild, and it's really, really sad. One of the testimonies from Brent, LACI's brother, is so heartfelt. He was crying and saying, like, our kids were supposed to grow up together. My kids are never gonna have cousins now, and like, we had planned this since we were kids of how our kids were gonna grow up together, and they were setting their lives up for that. Like, everybody was so excited for Connor to enter the world, and LACI was so happy, and it's really horrible. Like, that's why this case, I just think, touched so many people. Like, that's why we're still talking about it 20 years later. That's why people still remember Connor's name. A child that was not even actually he was not necessarily ever born, but it was he's still, his memory is there. Like, it's all just really fucking tragic. Do you have any final thoughts that you would like to say on this episode?
Really horrible. It's
horrible. It's heavy. It's fascinating. And I just, maybe one day we'll have more answers. If Scott actually did do this as he was convicted of this crime, like, I really do hope that one day he does confess if he did this. I don't think he ever would, even if he absolutely 150% did this, but still. We can always hope for that. And again, nothing but love and respect to the Rocha family and all the suffering that they've had to endure and still have had to endure. And same for Amber Fry. Watching this case kind of be brought back up and like, oh, they're going to look at his conviction being overturned. They're going to look at, that's so stressful for everyone involved and having drudge up those feelings again. So I really hope that they can find, peace in their hearts and closure just in some way, just for their own personal well-being. Like, we wish nothing but the best to all the families involved in this. But that, everybody, is the astrology of LACI Peterson. Thank you so much for watching both parts. We know this was a long one, but hopefully you guys loved having some extra content for the season 3 finale. We're going to come back with amazing stuff for season 4. So we're just going to continue to bring you the stories you want. So be sure to connect with us, like, follow, subscribe, give us some comments. If there's a story that you really want to hear, you can message us.
This episode was won on a poll, so
yeah, we chose this episode because you guys chose this episode. We want to give you the stories that you want to hear. We want to look at the charts you want to see. So please interact with us. Let us know. We're on every platform. We're at Dark Alignment pretty much everywhere. You can find the links to everything at darkalignmentpodcast.com. You can join our Patreon for exclusive content. You can buy some cool merchandise if you want everyone to know that you love charting bitches. If you you can also rate and review this podcast. 5 stars would be fantastic. Please, 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 we ask you so kindly to do us this solid and give us 5 stars. It would just mean the world. And like, we are also just so happy you guys continue to join us each week. Or if this is your first time, like, you picked a doozy. We're excited for you.
So true.
So true. Can you imagine this being your first episode with us? Like, it's a heavy hitter.
It makes me feel bad for them going back and hearing the old audio quality is what it does.
Oh man, yeah, we'll do
when
that.
They work their way to the beginning.
Work your way to the beginning with because some of our older episodes are also, I mean, all of our episodes are great. But even though
the content is always great,
the sound may not be what you expect.
In like the first few.
Yeah. I still didn't think they were that bad, but they weren't that good either. We were beginners.
Go listen to the first one. There's somebody mowing in the background.
Yes, there was. A person who I felt was trying to sabotage me at the time, and probably I'm correct.
3 years ago.
All that time, which is crazy. We've been doing this podcast for that long. So thank you guys so much for all of your support and all of the love. We completely appreciate you. And we want to empower you to continue to love yourselves, be nice to people, and chart all the bitches in your life. And we'll see you next season. Bye.
Bye.